Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror drama film, TAXIDERMIA. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins during World War II. An orderly working in a Hungarian military base is desperately warming himself up by sticking a candle close to his skin. He lives in a tiny shack near the base and always struggles with the cold. But later on, he moves the candle close to his private parts, attempting to roast his smelly sausage and derive pleasure from this. The next day, he walks to a frozen well in the base to get some water. He quickly looks around to see if there's anyone else in the vicinity. Upon seeing that the area is empty, he unzips his pants and sticks his private part in the freezing water, attempting to make a sausage ice cream. This is yet another of his strange proclivities. A second later, the orderly's lieutenant appears and catches him in his embarrassing act. The lieutenant makes him recite all the arduous tasks he has to do today in an effort to intimidate him. This list of tasks includes chopping firewood, cleaning the muck, and feeding the pig. Finally, the lieutenant threatens to shoot his lip off if he slacks in his job. Later that day, the orderly chops wood and delivers hot water to the bathroom. Inside are the lieutenant's two young daughters taking a bath. As lascivious as ever, the orderly sneakily peeks at the two women through the window. When the two women are done, the orderly returns to the bathroom. He bends his face to the dirty bathwater inside the tub, tastes their hormone smell, and imagines all the activities performed in the bathtub. Sometime later, the orderly spies the two daughters having a snowball fight outside his shack. He's once again driven by his dark impulses. He watches them through the wooden slats of his shack and pleasures himself by sticking out his private part. However, a passing chicken mistakes his smelly sausage for a fat worm and pecks at it hard, causing him to scream in pain. That night, the orderly opens a book of fairy tales. He closes his eyes and visualizes the tale of the little match girl. Again, he derives pleasure from imagining himself as the savior of the match girl. The next day, the orderly slaughters the pig they keep in the base. After killing the animal, he removes its innards, burns its skin off, and prepares it for eating. While the lieutenant's family feasts on the pig, he miserably sits by the window. The lieutenant shows the orderly a rare display of kindness by giving him a candle to keep him warm. The orderly takes the pig carcass and lays it out on the floor of his shack. He then imagines that he's sleeping with the lieutenant's wife while he does some smelly workout on the pig carcass. When morning comes, the lieutenant drops by his shack and sees the orderly naked and lying on the pig bones. Without hesitation, he shoots the orderly's head off. Months later, the lieutenant's wife inexplicably gives birth to a son that has a pig's tail sticking out of his back. It is implied that the son is a result of the weird fantasy that the orderly had that night. The lieutenant decides to raise the son as his own, but first, he removes the GPS tail. He names the son Kalman. Some years pass, and Hungary emerges from the war as a Soviet country. The world is now embroiled in the Cold War. During this time period, the now full-grown Kalman finds his passion as a speed eater. He has a large body and an even larger appetite. Kalman joins a speed eating competition that brings multiple countries together. He's representing Hungary along with his friend. After the first round, he and the other contestants throw up the huge amounts of food they consumed. He's currently ranked second, but that is not enough for his overbearing coach. Kalman makes a bet with his competitor that whoever wins the competition that day will take home the women's speed eating champion, Ms. Fatty. The second round starts, and Kalman gives his best as he consumes a mountain of food. However, he experiences a brutal lockjaw and he faints in the middle of the round. He ends up getting taken to the hospital for surgery. Luckily, Ms. Fatty visits him to cheer up his spirits. Kalman is also informed that his fellow Hungarian friend had won yesterday. Kalman and Ms. Fatty eventually end up together. On their wedding day, Ms. Fatty almost runs off with Kalman's friend. But Kalman serenades her with a love song, and Ms. Fatty is persuaded to stay with him. Years later, speed eating as a formal sport no longer commands the same respect as it once did. Kalman is still training with his coach, but he can no longer keep up with his international competitors. Despite this, his coach urges him to keep on training and improving his skills, so that when speed eating is recognized as a sport again, he can become a star. They discover that Ms. Fatty is pregnant. She works in a canning factory and represents it when she competes in speed eating competitions. But since she is pregnant, the doctor recommends that she be transferred to another division. The couple takes a vacation to celebrate. They frolic on the beach and have fun in an amusement park. They are also invited to a party on a yacht, where they are invited to showcase their speed eating process. Ms. Fatty and Kalman have to eat a huge plate of beans. But since Ms. Fatty is pregnant and has to throw up multiple times, she begins feeling sick. After a break, she proceeds to finish eating the huge plate of beans. She's now sweating bullets and looks pale. Out of nowhere, Ms. Fatty faints. It turns out she is already in labor. Calman takes his wife to the hospital, and she gives birth to a boy nicknamed Son Skinny. Despite both of his parents having large physiques, the boy is very thin. Calman remarks that he doesn't care, and that he is their son. More years pass, and the tall, blonde, and unnaturally thin son grows up to become a taxidermist. Inside his store, there are lots of animal skins and taxidermy. After his workday, he closes his shop and goes to the grocery store to pick up some things. He has a crush on one of the cashiers there. Hoping he can crush his hormones on her someday, he keeps on asking her out, despite her refusal each time. Later on, he goes to a cafe and gets a cup of coffee. No one really interacts with him. Son Skinny eventually goes to visit his father Calman. Ms. Fatty had left them years before to be a coach, and Calman is Son Skinny's only remaining family now. But embittered by his failure to make it as a speed-eating champion, Calman let himself become morbidly obese. He just sits on a chair in his dirty apartment, unable to move because of his weight. Half the time, he just mumbles old speed-eating instructions from his coach. Calman actually prefers his pet cats to his own son. Since his father can no longer move, Son Skinny is the one who has to feed the cats and clean their cage every day. He also changes his father's urinal as he dozes in front of the television. Back in his shop, Son Skinny works on removing the skin of a dead gorilla and stuffing it. One day, a rich doctor comes to his shop. He enlists Son Skinny's services for a small domestic animal to be stuffed. He is also interested in a stuffed bat, but Son Skinny tells him that it's not for sale. After work, Son Skinny follows the same routine. He goes to the grocery store and attempts to flirt with the cashier, who is creeped out by him. He then goes to his father's apartment to feed his fat cats and clean their spacious cage. While he's cleaning, Calman shares that he could eat hundreds of chocolate bars per hour, and he could even swallow the silver foil wrapper. Suddenly, Calman shouts that he's ashamed of Son Skinny for being too thin and weak to be a speed eater. He also thinks that Son Skinny's profession as a taxidermist is too disgusting. Fed up with his father's cruelty, he argues with Calman and tells him that he is the one paying for his father's gluttony. The son adds that his mother was right to leave him because he's so heartless that he has driven away everyone who ever cared about him. Son Skinny vows that he will never come to his father's apartment and help him out ever again. Calman reaches out to slap his son in the face, and Son Skinny retaliates by shoving all the chocolate bars at him. He turns off the light and angrily storms out of the apartment, not noticing that he has left the cat's cage door unlocked. Hurt by his father's comments about his appearance, Son Skinny immediately signs up for a gym membership. He trains with a coach so he can build his muscles and not be skinny anymore. The training regimen is grueling, and he almost passes out from fatigue. Later, he gets an order from the same doctor customer. The animal that the doctor wanted him to taxidermy is not an animal at all, but an unborn fetus. Still, a customer is a customer, so Son Skinny goes about his work as usual. Later that day, he goes to the grocery store to pick up the usual things. The female cashier is no longer there, probably because she got too creeped out by his incessant advances. As hateful as his father is, Son Skinny realizes that his father is the only person who can tolerate him. As a result, his anger at his father simmers down, and he's now willing to patch things up. Son Skinny goes to his father's apartment. When he gets inside, he calls out to Calman, but his father does not respond. Son Skinny walks into the dark living room. The TV is still on, but Calman is already dead. His stomach was ripped open, and his innards were splayed out on the floor in front of him. His obese body is pale and drained of blood. Son Skinny's gaze follows the trail of blood, and he realizes that he has left the cage door unlocked the last time he was there. As a result, Calman's cats got out and killed him. They then devoured his internal organs afterward because they were too hungry. Son Skinny takes his father's body back to his shop. He removes all his remaining flesh and internal organs and hollows his body out. He then injects chemicals into his father's skin and starts preparing his body for taxidermy. For Son Skinny, this is the best honor he can bestow onto his father, who had prided himself on his huge speed-eating body. Afterward, Son Skinny straps himself inside a metal harness. He hooks his body up to an anesthetic drip and then turns on a heart lung machine. Son Skinny then begins with an incision in his ribcage. He carefully removes his organs one by one and soaks them in chemicals. He slowly sifts through his cartilage and muscles with a scalpel. Finally, he pumps his body full of chemicals so he can preserve it in its current state. He is being kept alive by the heart-lung machine as he does this macabre taxidermy on himself. Son Skinny closes up the incision he had made on his ribcage. He presses a button on the surgical harness, and the machine abruptly decapitates him. Another blade swiftly comes down and proceeds to hack off his limbs. Sometime later, the doctor comes by Son Skinny's shop to pick up his order. He wanders inside the empty store and sees the finished fetus, preserved in a keychain as he requested. The doctor walks deeper inside the shop to look for Son Skinny. He passes by all the bones, equipment, and fur that make up the strange man's business. Eventually, the doctor wanders inside the secret room and stumbles upon the masterpiece of Son Skinny's final act. What Son Skinny did to his father's corpse and himself is so shocking that sometime later, the taxidermy bodies become part of an art exhibit. The museum used to house it is grand, with glowing white walls and opulent decorations. All the guests who came for the opening of the exhibit are decked out in expensive white clothes to match the interior. The doctor is standing on a balcony overlooking everything. He's speaking into a microphone and recounting what happened that fateful day when he stepped into that room. Beside him is a woman translating everything he says in English. He describes how he saw a machine decapitate Son Skinny's head and then his arm. In the center of the exhibit is Calman's large body propped up on a pedestal. His protruding belly spills out of his fur robes, while his cat's taxidermied bodies are perched on him. Son Skinny had preserved his father and his cats, and then killed himself because he couldn't bear being truly alone in the world. The doctor muses that maybe Son Skinny preserved his body as well, because he wanted to leave something behind that would defy time, and possibly wanted the Western world to see how humanity is distorted under the Soviet Union regime. The movie ends with a shot focusing on Son Skinny's preserved body in the exhibit. His skin has taken on a marble-like gray pallor, and the way that his head and arm were severed makes his body look like a Roman statue. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.